It's January 22nd, 2022, and I thought I'd start off here real briefly with an intro, and then I'm going to cover a main topic. I want to talk about what's going on with the FBI and the Justice Department and the Democrat congressman. But first, I want to say, obviously, we have a big relief that we had the big vote on the filibuster, and now we kind of know how that is. It turns out that, of course, the filibuster held up with a 52 to 48 vote, but it also means all the questionable Democrats have all caved and now supporting the idea of eliminating the filibuster. So, but for the moment, Senator Manchin and Sinema are holding firm, and of course, they're probably receiving a lot of hate mail at this point. So, in fact, if anybody feels like it, I'd certainly say send them a thank you note and by email and on the Senate.gov and contacts site, and just be thankful that they stood their ground and how you respect their courage for doing so. Let's hope that continues. But the main thing I want to get into is this issue of what's happening with this Congressman Henry Cuellar in southern Texas, and basically he's been subjected very recently to an FBI raid on his home and office. And I think this is very significant, and I'll kind of explain the context for this. First of all, if you like these videos, remember to subscribe. If you're on YouTube, give me a like, and you can pass links to these videos to anybody else that might be interested. Okay, okay. Why this is significant is that the Texas primary will be, I think it's early March, I think March the 1st, I believe. So it's just a little over a month away. And here we have the FBI coming in and raiding a congressman. Now, why is he significant? And why would I care about what's happening to a Democrat congressman? Well, here's the thing. He is one of the very few congressmen on the Democrat side that was opposing the full Build Back Better bill initially. But the main thing he did was he was calling out the administration for failing to act on this wave of illegal immigrants flooding across the border. And while he represents a highly Hispanic district, it also is the case that the people there are really being overwhelmed with these illegals and them trashing their yards, cutting fences, and doing all kinds of things and scaring people, basically. And that whole community, even though they're Latino, are upset about it. And he represents them, so he spoke out to represent his people. And now, surprisingly, before a primary that's coming up, here comes the FBI and does this raid on his house and on his office. Now, can we not think that this is some form of intimidation or retribution? And it indicates just how partisan the current DOJ is. I mean, is there anything they really just discovered after he spoke out and caused a little bit of an obstacle to the Democrat agenda that hadn't been known before, and now we're acting? One tends to think not. And I would like to point out this seems to me to indicate a very partisan Justice Department playing a political vendetta. Now, the allegations I've heard so far has to do with some kind of contact or dealings he's had with some businessmen from Azerbaijan. Again, I'm not sure what, that's a nation that's kind of, I guess it's north of Iran, and it's over towards what we would say the northeast Iran. It's also true that Azerbaijan has had some dealings with Israel in terms of military equipment. And there have been concentrations of Iranian troops on their border, and also clashes with with other countries in the area, I think. So Armenia, particularly, I meant to say. So that's kind of background on what's going on there. Now, and I also point a historic precedent for this. There's a Republican congressman named Curt Weldon who was actually on a chairman of a subcommittee, an armed services subcommittee, and he was investigating a program called Able Danger, which was that's a code word for a classified military program that was studying terrorist threats prior to 9/11. And apparently they may or may not, I don't know if they ever will be released, kind of like the Kennedy assassination history and all that, found, indications that the 9/11 attack or something similar to it was about to happen, and he was trying to investigate that. And of course, what happened to him? Oh, he was hit with an FBI raid right before his election, and he lost. And then the case just went away after he lost the election. Apparently, there's nothing to it anyhow, huh? But you can see another example of the kind of political intrigue that goes on here within the misuse of the Justice Department for political ends. And so I don't know much about this Congressman Henry Cuellar at all before this. I mean, the first time I can recall, I think I'd heard the name before, but, because I follow politics and I hear a lot of names, but I didn't know much about him other than he was a Democrat. But apparently he was simply responding to the concerns of the people in his district, and then sort of apparently somebody decided to respond to him. Apparently he stepped a little out of line there, holding up that Build Back Better bill, and I cannot buy that. I mean, you'd have to have a full-scale investigation conducted by partisan Republicans that had access to everything to convince me that this is not payback for him holding up their big bill and speaking up particularly, I think, on the immigration issue, because the idea of a Latino congressman in the Democrat Party calling out the illegal immigration that's being allowed to happen across our border, the complete negligence of the administration to faithfully carry out the laws of our land that's being represented by that. I think that was the thorn in their side that really motivated this, and it may well be that they started an investigation afterwards, like, well, when former President Trump made some comments, they started an investigation into him during the campaign, as we recall. And it was all jived up and concocted as well. So I don't know whether they really have anything or not, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have done anything about whatever it was if he'd have been a good foot soldier for Nancy Pelosi. But since he wasn't, apparently, well, I don't know. I mean, it's like all these other issues you hear, like on the stock trading. I mean, as far as I can tell, all the congressmen and senators have done this trading. Only one senator is really under any serious investigation over it, though Nancy Pelosi's done what she's done also. And so that's just an example of the kind of thing that's going on in DOJ. We all heard about the idea of a policy of investigating parents that are complaining about neo-Marxist training in their schools and that sort of thing. And, well, or the fact that this Mr. Epps, I guess his name is, was running around encouraging people to go inside the Capitol on January 6th and the day before, and yet he was also at one time on the most wanted list, and then apparently he was taken off, and now he's considered to be a completely innocent person. While people are being arrested and prosecuted or merely walked into the building after all the rioting was essentially over with, well, this guy was encouraging the whole thing ahead of time and is not being prosecuted. It seems like something's going on there too. I know that Tucker Carlson and Senator Cruz have both called this issue out. I think other people as well. There's a website called The Revolver, I think it's called, that's done background investigations on it. So there's obviously some kind of malfeasance on that January the 6th riot also. And there's probably some degree to which agents of the government were at least knowledgeable that it was coming and didn't provide adequate security, or on the other hand, maybe even actively encouraged it, in order to set Trump up for what's going on now. So this is the kind of thing that I think we have to be wary of, and that's why, I mean, when you see things like this, don't necessarily assume the person's guilty of anything. Right now, I think that the whole issue is to try to defeat him in a primary, which, again, from a Republican point of view, could be a good thing, of course, but the Republicans have no authority over this at the present time, obviously. So, but I mean, what I'm saying is if they run a suitable Latino Republican candidate and this leftist manages to beat him in the primary, then maybe it would be easier to win the seat and surprise everybody. But at any rate, that's nothing I'm doing. I'm just saying this, there could be consequences here, and it may indicate the Democrats are willing to sacrifice a seat over it. Because after all, maybe if they've calculated they're going to lose the House anyhow, then why not pick off a few people they don't like in the meantime? Anyway, I just thought that's interesting. It's a story to focus on a little bit as time goes forward. Let's see what happens in the next several weeks up to the primary. And also, I'll post a link to articles on this in the description below, along with the handles to my social media accounts on the various Twitter, Parler, Gab, and Gettr. And I'll close this for now. Until next time.